Hey friends, my name is Megan and welcome to episode 44 of a-knotty-mess knitting podcast. We have a full episode ahead of us. I have a couple acquisitions. Just, I'll tell you about it. A finished object. Something that I haven't worn before, but we talked about last week, which was the finished object then. And 3 new cast ons. One of which I don't even think I talked about last week. Anyway, I have one extra one that is wound, and I'm going to show you the yarn wound because it's so pretty and just to remind you what I'm going to cast on. So let's go for it. We've got a lot of things to cover. If you're new here, hi, my name is Megan. I live in the Pacific Northwest with my husband Mike, our daughter Theo, my mom Cindy lives with us, and our dog Winter. Winter is also having a little bit of an injury right now. Something happened to her right hind leg and no one knows what. Just she got up from laying down yesterday and kind of yipped and then has not been putting weight on it. So we have a vet appointment tomorrow. She is taking doggy Advil to help with swelling, but she's laying next to me, and so sometimes when she dreams she makes noises. I'm not gonna wake her up. So if you hear doggy noises, she's with me today being a sweetheart, but and she's just kind of unhappy, so she's with mommy. So that's me. That is it's sad. I just like, it's a parental worry factor. It like just goes up and up when your poor dogs who can't express themselves well don't feel well. Let's move on to happier things. I've got a newly minted finished object thing for me to wear. We did talk about details last week, but I'm going to do all the reminders first. I'll stand up. We can talk about it. Fit, modifications, etc. So this is the Mixed Rib Camisole by Florence, who is handmade by Florence on Instagram. It is a test knit. The test knit notes are due next week. I still need to submit my form. I have measurements on Ravelry and all of my yarn related things, how much yardage, etc. So I'm still waiting for the final pattern to see some of the pattern measurements, but this is a size F. It is for 125 centimeter bust. It's supposed to have 10 to 15 centimeters of negative ease, but I'm not exactly sure what that is supposed to equate to in this. So also I'm wearing something over it, but so this is it's a sleeveless top. It is made with 3mm needles. Yeah, I did the I cords with 2.25 millimeter needles because I couldn't find my 2.5. Anyway, worked out well for me. My I cords are always a little bit loose, so it's not too tight. Nothing is too tight in any of the spaces. It is made with a merino cone of the color Bias from Woolly Knit. And I got this cone for this. Obviously, this was the idea to wear them together. This is my Calm Down cardigan, and it's 100% merino, 514 yards for 100 grams when held single, and the cone I got was 500 grams. So I had 2 cones to make this, and I had enough to make this, plus I have a lot extra. I have like almost this amount left over. Not quite. Okay. So let's talk about fit, and then we'll talk about modifications as we talk about fit. Because I don't want to disturb the dog, I'm just going to scoot to my chair and you're going to get not as good of a representation, but that's okay. I'll move back as far as I can. Oh, and there's winter hair on here. Okay, so this is the camisole. Let's look at, I will take my one sleeve out. I'm not going to take this whole sweater off because I don't like to show my arms, so I'm not going to like just have them out here, but I will put a picture up when I sit down of some pictures I took that, if you need ideas of ways to hide your arms, this is how I took pictures. But anyway, so the one thing that I think is changing the pattern, and I would contemplate going back and changing now that I've worn this a couple times and it is kind of bugging me, is the neckline pickup. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But overall, it's a top down mixed rib, which is the name. So there's a stockinette panel, and then there's twisted rib, or half twisted, I don't know, whatever. Twisted rib, so it's a knit through the back loop, down, and that's all it is. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's like I don't know, it's not a very complicated stitch pattern, but it is all over texture. I did do shaping. I did shaping, so at my bust is the widest part, and then at the waist it's a couple inches smaller. It's not actually very much. And because of the waist shaping, I think it does have like a little bit of a curve from the bind off. The bind off is just a Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. I told you this last week, I could have added another inch. It sits okay with high-waisted jeans, but like some of my shorts this summer, like I might just be at the same line, which I don't love, but like also is fine. Also, I intended to wear this with this most of the time, and this is longer. So, I mean, who knows what I'll end up doing. She has really good instructions for arm pickup holes. So I'll show you one arm out. You can see it's like, my bra is like completely covered. We don't have any weird things here. You can see the decreases on the side. And like in even the back, whoop, I'll bend a little bit. You can see the back line. The back line actually sits okay. It's the front that is kind of doing this weird, it's like gapey. So on the corner here, or the shoulder here, like it does cover your bra strap. It sits pretty nicely if I don't let it pull in because of this kind of gaping. Okay, let's talk about that gaping for a second. So Florence did update the pattern. I think for the smaller sizes, and she probably made herself a small or a medium, probably a small. Anyway, the rate of pickup is 1-to-1, and I think that's accurate for smaller sizes. For the bigger sizes though, you have a lot of stitches here and your bust is going to be bigger than your neck. So I did put that comment in. A couple other people also did. A couple people who hadn't done it yet but were like, yeah, I can see that being a concern. So I think the larger sizes will be tested with a less increase, so it's a 1-to-1, which what I picked up, and I think that will work fine. So my first fix that I'm going to try is to just run some fishing line through, and I think that'll just tighten it up a little bit so that it will just have less of a tendency to flop. If that gets bunchy or looks weird, then I may later this summer, probably at the end of summer, because honestly I'll probably just wear it like this, but maybe not. Maybe I'll do it like in a slow week. I don't have any slow weeks. Anyway, maybe I'll just do it, rip this out, which it's just a pickup too, so that's also not that terrible. Even if I can't find the I-cord start and stuff, you just cut it somewhere. I have plenty of this yarn, so I'm not really concerned about it. And then you just yank it out, and re-pick up at the lower rate of pickup. And I think it'll make the overall neckline just a little bit cinched in. Not a lot, but just enough like this. That would be perfect. So there we go. That is my mixed rib camisole. I overall really enjoy it. I like the fit. I wish I had made it 1 inch longer. Remember, I was just super fed up with doing this. I would do it in another yarn. This is a really light fingering. A lot of people are doing it in Knitting for Olive Merino, which is the light fingering, also very similar yardage wise. I would contemplate making this in a slightly plumper, like a 436 or something kind of yardage for 100 grams sock yarn, in something that has a little nylon in it, and I think it would hold up really well, and I think that it would look nice. I don't feel like this is very see-through even with a really light fingering, and I don't think it would change my size that much if I did something that was a little bit plumper of a yarn. I would contemplate for sure doing this again. I think it went really fast. Like I made this in 2.5 weeks or something, and yeah, it's sleeveless and that's nice, etc. But I do think it's also like, it's interesting but not a lot pattern wise, and it was pretty mindless. So like that's a good mix for me. Like it's not just a stockinette thing to have a bunch of, but I could have a couple of these and like it. I think if I did it again, I would also contemplate doing the lesser rate of increase, and I might just do some math and make these straps a little bit wider. Not a lot. 4 stitches on each side would just bring it in a tiny bit. I think if I change the rate of increase on this first and then see how I like that, that would inform if I did actually want to change the shoulders. And these are really small. Like this shoulder is very a small amount of knitting. So if I also didn't like it, it would not be the end of the world. Okay, that is that. Overall, like, yeah, really happy. This is my first knit by Florence, and I think it's like, it's kind of like a staple piece. Like, I think it really is. I think it's a really good look, and I think that's, you know, she has like kind of feminine staple pieces, as I think, like, sort of how I think of her aesthetic. Okay, for this week, I do have a finished object, and that is, maybe to no one's surprise, I was a little bit surprised, my Stripey Turtle Tank is done. I actually finished this pretty early in the week, like maybe Saturday. I think maybe Saturday. So I film on Thursdays. Today is Thursday, the 6th of June. So it was the end of May. Oh yeah, for sure. I finished this on May 31st. And I just was like, I'm going to get these armholes and blocked all on the 31st. And I did up most of the back panel while I was editing. So that was good. And I don't know where I was last week, but this is the back, and I was, you know, somewhere here-ish. Like, I had done a couple of rows, maybe had finished the decreases, but I hadn't done as much of the back panel. And so I finished that. Did the collar, which actually went super fast, and so I was like, oh, I can do the armholes easy peasy. As a reminder, this is the Stripey Turtle Tank by Emily Curtis, who is Gently Chaotic Knits, and on Instagram, Emily Kurt, and she is a friend. This is actually my first Emily pattern though. And so I had all of her summer patterns in my queue this year. This one was the only one that was on my make 12 because I really, really wanted it, but I really also want the color tip tee, which will be the next one I cast on. I also want the slanty stripes, but I don't have my yarn for that yet, and I can't wait to share it with you when it comes. Anywho, this is, yeah, so my first Emily pattern, and I'd read through her patterns because I owned a couple of them. Like, I bought several of them last summer, and just, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a tank top person. Now that I really love cardigans, knit cardigans, tank tops are perfect for that. This one actually will look nice under this, I think, just like complementary colors. So, overall, my pattern feedback for this is that it was easy to understand. Even though there is striping throughout, she doesn't ad nauseum like the striping. She just says, like, at the top of each section, don't forget to stripe. And that was really helpful. She has a stripe chart in the back, but otherwise, like, you could very easily ignore that instruction and just knit this in a plain color. Somebody in our knit along, which this is the knit along, my first of the knit along knits for our a-knotty-mess knit along, and somebody else just finished theirs, and they did a no stripe version, and it's also really cute. Like, it's just a really cute shape. Ariel also just finished hers, and this was her second Stripey Turtle Tank, and she did an I-cord edging at the neckline, and I like that. Okay, so there's also one other, I think it's called the Sailor Swift top, which is also striped, similarly shaped, except for there's a little bit more neck shaping. And just after having made this, I'm like, wow, I feel like that'd be a really easy mod for this, to make this with a little bit more of a scoop. I would just have to sort of do a tiny bit of math on if I like these shoulders or if I'd bring them in a little bit. And you just do a split. Since you're doing bottom up, like, that's really easy. You do your bind off earlier, and you just make nice edging here. Because I have a ton of patterns that I have several bottom up patterns I've made that have really nice neck shaping, I can just borrow. So I have not done that a lot, like a lot of hacks to a pattern to make it like completely different. But this is one I think I would feel pretty comfortable with, because I really like the fit and the shaping, and the overall other instructions were, you know, super easy to follow. One thing I will note is, and I like this version on me though, like, as a Stripey Turtle Tank, I like this. I'm gonna do the mini mock neck also at some point, and so see if I like the totally different shaping of that one. But one thing to note is the rate of increase, or the rate of pickup for the underarms, is a little vague. I think, like, this one, she tells you where to put some markers, and like, or it's a really consistent number of stitches you pick up. And this one, you can do the same thing, but she sort of gives you here's what I would do, but also some testers did, you know, a lesser rate of increase or rate of pickup, so that they would have slightly higher armpits, right? Like, the less stitches you pick up, the smaller the armhole's going to be. I did mostly her suggested pickup rate, and I really like it. I would play with that, like even, yeah, I think you could play with it and be really happy. I know Ariel did like a little less this time. And so I think, yeah, that's why you can make 2 versions. Also, this didn't take me very long either. So I can't wait to show this to you next week. I'm not going to put it on now because I will wear it next week, but it is finished. It's already a little wrinkly. It's blocked. I did not really stretch it. I did pin it so that my hem sat even, and I pinned the armpits so that they would not curl in. And I did maybe stretch this bottom half just a tiny bit, but it's sitting really nicely. It's longer than the one I currently have on, but not by a lot. And I like it. I think it's a really good fit. So very excited about this. I might just wear this lipstick again with this one. This one's good. This is one of my gifted ones from Valerie. I think this is Berry something, and it's a good color. That's a great color. So anywho, I'm really excited to put this on and show you guys next week. Now let's talk about, it feels a little nude. I mean, it's a neutral. It was like the neutral something tonals, moody neutrals, whatever. That was like, Allie, this is all, sorry, I'll give details in a second, but this is all Explore Knits yarn, and it does feel moody neutral, which is not normally my vibe, but I'm here for it. I like it. So the size on that, I decided to make size 7, which is 44 inches. Recommended ease is 0 to 2 inches. That's a little bit more negative ease for me, but size-wise, it was fine. This is, I also use 3mm needles for the whole knit. I think the recommended needles is 3.25. I'm actually not sure. Maybe it is 3mm. I got gauge pretty close. This is Explore Knits and Fibers Denali Sock, the whole thing, which is a 2-ply. It is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams, and the colors are linen, and then the summer moody neutral tonals or whatever. And those colors are, just as a really quick reminder, are Trastevere, Daybreak, Alto Stratus, Chinley, and Rose Quartz. And yeah, really enjoy it. So let's talk about my Iris Hayley Sweater test knit. Okay, so this is a test knit, and it is due in the middle of August. So I still have time, and it's the oldest thing on my needles. So I think I cast this on, oh, let's see, March 22nd, which was not that long ago, but I can't believe it's June, y'all. So I need to get cracking on it, and I just I put it down for like 3 weeks, and I decided I really needed to get it going. So this is the Hayley Sweater, which is the long sleeve version. I'm sorry, there's so much like dog hair and other things on here. It's the long sleeve version of the Hayley Slipover, which Iris put out maybe last year or the year before. And it is an all over cabled thing. So the pattern of the slipover is super similar. Obviously there's different armhole shaping, and maybe the neckline is a tiny bit different, but it's mostly the same. Similar, you know, same stitch pattern, etc. So the long sleeve version, and I don't know if she got a lot of suggestions for it or asks for it, is adapting that pattern with a beautiful inset sleeve, which has the diamond thing on the top. So I had one sleeve partially on last week, which was this sleeve. I put a little marker, so that's where I was, and I just used the ball of yarn that was connected to the project. Then I decided to, what I did was, and I was explaining this to one of the girls in our knitting group who is a little bit newer to knitting, and she was like, why did you do your sleeves? Because I was working on them during knit night. She was like, why do you have part of one done and the other one is more done? I was like, that's a great question. It's really just yarn management. So partly because I wanted a true try on to see if the sleeve was going to be long enough, and I knew I couldn't do that if I just finished this sleeve and didn't have anything over here, because these are inset sleeves, and because this is pretty stretchy, and because this is not blocked all the way. There's so many reasons. So after I ran out of the yarn here, which is where I ended last week, I just cast on with new yarn over here, and I completed this whole sleeve, which here's the top of the pickup. It's got 7 little diamonds. It's so cute. And I finished this, tried it on, made sure I liked the length, and then just matched this one. And I have not tried it on since, and I'm not gonna until it's mostly done. So that's fine. I really like the fit. It's definitely fitted. It's, I think I'm making size 5, which is 46 inches. 48 inches. So it is supposed to have positive ease, but it's 1 to 4 inches. Also, this is not blocked, and this will relax a ton and it will bloom a ton. So it's not going to look so small when it's finished. I'm using 4 millimeters for the needles for the body, and 4.5 I used for the whole sleeve other than the cuff, which I did use 3.5, which is the recommended for the neckline. And yeah, that's a whole millimeter size down instead of half. But I wanted the sleeves to cinch in a little bit. Plus, we'll talk about sleeves in a second because I made some mods. This is Cascade BFL in the color Red 09. It's 100% BFL wool. It's 262 yards for 100 grams. It's pretty close to what Iris is using, which is like something that's more readily available in England than here. Like it's a Garthenor yarn. Like I can get it here. It's just, yeah. This was a cheaper alternative. This is pretty inexpensive per skein, like 14 or 16 bucks or something. And you get pretty good yardage. I love the color. I can't wait to wear it. So I had ended the body previous to starting sleeves at, you know, this is 4.5 inches or so. You would think with how much I measure things, I'd be better at eyeballing inches, but quite frankly, I'm not. And I will say our knitting group is not either, because the other week I asked, like, how many inches do you think I am? And I made everybody guess. And like, I think Sylvan was closest actually, but like, it's so hard. Like, as much as I measure things, it's just, I'm never that accurate. Anyway, let's call this 4.5 inches. Maybe a little bit more. I have yarn already connected. I will go back, pick up all of these. Like, these are on stopper still. Find the needles for this and go back and start knitting the body this week. I'm not going to put it back on hold. I'm going to just try to finish it in the month of June. I got a decent amount of this body done in a week previously. I don't know how many projects I had on my needles at that time though, so that's going to dictate it for sure. The sleeves went pretty fast, but again, you only have 1 diamond. Not that the diamond is the annoying part of the pattern. And there is not really an annoying part of the pattern. Like, just because there's so much variety in the cable stitches, it goes pretty quickly. I don't really need to look at the pattern at this point because I know what is happening for each of them. I do consult it just to make sure I stay on track for the small twisted cables. But that's it. And so it's all charted and it's in Stitch Fiddle. I think I talked about this before. She has these all in Stitch Fiddle, which you can go to for free. You can't customize or change things without going in and actually making an account, but you can just click on those links in her pattern and it lets you use a progress tracker through, and it like highlights the row you're on. I've used Stitch Fiddle for lots of other things and I've had an account for years and I really love it. So I think it's great. Resource for that. The one annoying thing is that because you're using this free thing, it doesn't, and I don't even think it matters if you have an account. It doesn't save where you are. So when I close out for the night, I'm like, oh, I'm done. I just make a note in like notes in my phone that I put what row I ended on, like what's the last row I finished or whatever. So I know when I pick it back up because it's going to refresh the page and be back to blank. Anywho. So yeah, we'll see how it goes here, but I've got, you know, probably 10 inches to do of body, maybe not quite. And that feels like a lot, but also, it'll be fine. Okay. So cuffs. I did make some alterations to the sleeves very minorly and only really just in my decrease rate. So the decrease rate was just a little bit more rapid than I wanted for my arms because these are pretty fitted sleeves. I would make this change for pretty much any sleeve. It's not just that these are cabled or like the sizing of them. When they are tapered fitted sleeves, I tend to make the adjustment of this is slower and maybe I keep it more rapid, or I just do less decreases overall and do a rapid decrease at the cuff, or depending on what the cuff is, I maybe don't. So in this case, I did a less, so in the way that like it'll look for most people who finish this is they won't have any of this sort of seed stitch in between by the time they get to the cuff. And I think I probably had 6, maybe 8 extra stitches stitches in the cuff than someone normally would, which is kind of significant. But I put my hand in here and I'll show you. Just as far as like for the cuff itself, yes, it's not super tight, but it's still like pretty fitted. This is a thought for myself, knowing that I want to wear this for holidays. I inevitably have to do dishes or other things and or take care of my child. And I want to be able to pull up my cuffs without like it being too hard or feeling I'm really stretching the fabric out. So I knew for this, like this isn't just going to be a workwear or something where I don't have my kid doing dishes, whatever. So yeah, anyway, I thought about it. I like how it fits. It's good. I did do a sew and bind off, which I think is what's in the pattern. So yeah, that's my only real change, is a slower rate of decrease. And overall, like it still looks nice. It looks tapered. And I don't think, like between people's patterns, like it doesn't make any significant difference. Okay, let's move on to the next thing that was on my needles, which is my Sundial top, and I also finished those sleeves. So overall this week I finished 4 sleeves, which feels significant, and also is really good because I just need to get them done. So this is my Sundial top, also by Iris H, who is Iris Makes on Instagram and YouTube. This is a circular yoke, mixed texture, I don't know what you want to call it, sundial. I mean, like it's got these veined textured, and these are textured, not just pearl, like one single pearl stitch. It is like it's a broken rib, which is actually really nice because it does kind of give you just this like it sort of looks like a singular rib line, but there are 3 broken rib stitches there. It's so cute. Sleeves are really nice. I tried this on during knit night. You can see my new ball of yarn connection. This is Explore Knits and Fibers color Grapefruit. It was all purchased at the same time from the summer market, but it was purchased at the summer market. So like Sylvan did her best to eyeball, get the same colors. And honestly, it's not, I mean, it is noticeable, but like, it's not that noticeable. And quite frankly, I don't care. I noticed it once I was like an inch or so into the sleeve, and I was like, is that gonna bug me? And I decided with washing, etc., it's close enough, and in certain light, like, and further back, like, it's noticeable, but I don't care. I just don't care. I'm not gonna go back. Wasn't gonna go back and, so this ball of yarn also went to here. So quite frankly, I don't see a line down here, but I could have one. I really don't see a line. So like I could have gone back and taken this yarn, which is connected to the body, and done the sleeves with that instead. And then knowing that this is slightly darker, done some helical knitting in the body, or I could have done, you know, helical knitting in the sleeve, but I just didn't care enough to do it. I don't care enough when I wear it. I'm not going to notice it probably. And also like no one else is going to notice it that much. And if you do, like it's a feature, right? So that's what we're going to call it. I do think because of this color, like just, I think overall hand-dyed yarns, though they keep their color pretty well, will mellow out with washing just a tiny bit. And so like, I think that, if I like let this soak even a little bit longer, like it'll just mellow this color line out a little, like you won't notice it as much. And if not, I have different color sleeves. So whatever. I didn't add any length. I added like 2 rows to the body. This was not my desk. Well, I've only had like 2 days of work, I guess, and no, I guess 3 days of work, but I didn't really have a knit project for my desk this week. I didn't have that many meetings, so I've just been like doing work, which is super lame, but I have actually a lot of meetings on Thursday, so I'll probably have something at my desk today. Okay, and so that is a size 5, and it's 44 inches. Recommended ease is 0 to -3 inches. That's -3 for me. Also using a 3mm needles for the body, 2.5 for the collar. I've just been using 3mm needles for everything, I guess. Explore Knits and Fibers, Cashmere Caverns in Grapefruit, 80% superwash merino, 10% nylon, 10% cashmere, 435 yards for 100 grams. Overall, super pleased. I'm going to be done with that. I mean, I did measure the body on this, and I think I have 6.5 inches, and so I imagine I need 12 or 13 before ribbing. I might make this a tiny bit cropped. Anyway, the body didn't feel that bad like over the last couple of weeks doing body. I'm glad the sleeves are done just so that they're done. And honestly, in person, it's so much less abrasive than when I just held this up on screen. Like even there right now, it depends. Like if I get closer in the light, you can see it, but like back here is not that noticeable. Whatever. I did a sew and bind off for this. I did not switch to a smaller cuff needle because I don't want these to be tighter at the bottom of my bicep because the bottom of my biceps is not that much smaller. These are going to fit me to like, you know, my elbows here, like right above, maybe 1.5 inches above my elbow, which is perfect. I just made them about 1 inch longer, not quite, than the pattern suggested. So worked out well for me, just with the size and stuff of the yoke. It's a little bit longer than Iris's, but they look great. Okay, let's go back to the next cast on. Or the next project. The next one is my Market Henley, which is a test knit. So this is not a test knit, the last one I talked about. That is just part of, actually, Iris is doing a knit along, which goes until the 1st of July. So I do want to get it done by the 1st of July, just to get it done by then. I think it would be nice to have it as a summer t-shirt. Also, it's going to be so soft and so nice. Oh, what I didn't tell you is this. I washed with human hair conditioner, which I talked about last week, and it does feel a lot softer. Like I've worn it a couple of times and it totally doesn't bother me on my neck. Even if I get a little bit toasty, like this could get washed with human hair conditioner and I'd probably be happier with the way it feels. Though it's not actually, as a cardigan, like unless my elbows get really sweaty, like overall it doesn't feel very itchy on me. But this is much less itchy than I thought it would be. Okay. Okay, so for the Market Henley, before I hold it up, I will tell you sizing. This is a pattern by Claire Jackson, who is Perfectly Knotted on Instagram. The test is due on August 1st, and I think she's going to release it Flock weekend. And Claire will be at Flock. That's really all I know. I don't know if there's any like purpose for the Flock release, but I'm pretty sure that's what she said, is that's her intention, which is a week after this pattern is due for everybody. It's a top-down drop shoulder waffle stitch Henley, which is the Henley of my dreams, and I cannot wait for it to be done. I'm making the size 52-inch bust. Recommended use is 4 to 8 inches. That's 5 for me. I am using 3.25 millimeter needles. I think she uses 3.5. I'm pretty sure Claire is a thrower, like an English style knitter, so I think that her gauge tends to be a little bit tighter. A bunch of people in the test have gone down to like a 3.25. Like that's pretty common for what we have done to achieve gauge. I did start at 3.5. I thought my swatch looked pretty good. Doing a larger amount of this waffle stitch though, I definitely was not tight enough for gauge. So I ripped the back out, redid that. Now I'm all connected and stuff. This is also Explore Knits and Fibers Denali Sock in Flock, which was the Flock colorway for 2023. This is 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams. So it's a plump 2-ply fingering weight yarn. I really love Denali. I mean, she's not the only one that has this kind of sock base. I enjoy a 2-ply. I know some people just really can't abide, and I get that. Maybe because I've made enough socks and I like a 2-ply for socks. I don't know. I just don't find it irritating to work with. I don't find that I catch it very often. It feels nice in my hands. Here is where I was. Okay, I'm going to show you in a couple places. This is why I wanted to put the computer down. So in the back, you can see how many rounds I've done since joining. And this is the only stitch marker that will remain for right now, which is my Flock stitch marker from Flock last year. It's so cute, from Hello Lavender. So I've probably done about 1 inch or so, maybe 1.5 inches of body since I joined. Last week I had done, here we are, a little bit of this left side shoulder here where I put my coffee latte stitch marker, also from Hello Lavender. And how cute is that? Also, how nice does this little pattern look? So pretty. And this was the non-buttonhole side over here. And then I did the pickup, which is on the shoulder. So that I have another stitch marker. Also from Hello Lavender, but this is just like one of the accent ones. And this, you can see, if I kind of hold where I would be wearing it in the neckline, that stitch marker is all the way on the back. So like the clay, the shoulder is sloped in the back. That's how it's like cast on with short rows. And then you pick up and you knit like a bit to be your top of your shoulder, and then you do neck shaping. What I will say is I am doing a pattern iteration that won't be released with the pattern. Claire made a little bit of, it was very small, very minor, math error for just a couple of the middle sizes. One of the girls went back and ripped it out. I messaged Claire and said, hey, I'm just not going to rip it out. I don't think there's going to be a big difference. I ripped out a little bit because I'd gotten to the end of the armhole shaping, and I did want the front and the back to be the same for the body. And I was just 6 stitches too few on the front. She changed the pickup. It's the additional stitches you put on right here. So really I would have only had to go back this much, but like that was too much. I was not going to do it. And I would have had to do it for both sides. So like it just would have been a lot. I didn't want to add the armhole increase. Like I just added them at the bottom. So it's just a slightly longer increase on the front than it is on the back. I don't think that's bad with bust and other things, because I have breast tissue in the front to add that on the front and not have it on the back. Which does mean that my front neck line will be a slightly smaller than my back. I don't think that's bad. As with this top, like my back is sitting really nice and the front is what feels a little bit wrinkly, and it's the same number of stitches. So I think it's okay if my front is a little bit smaller. The pattern as written, I think will also look fine. Again, it's 3 stitches on either side. I'm most likely going to wear this open most of the time, so I'm not worried about it. I will be doing the collar, pickup, etc., just with that in mind, that I have a slightly skewed number of stitches to pick up, like very minorly. Like I think I can just do one size below for the collar and then not have to do any strange math. I think I'm going to do the collar though this coming week, because you do one final, sorry, the dogs smacked the camera. Hopefully it's fine. Anyway, so you also have a final buttonhole in the collar, which makes sense because Henleys, you don't want to have like a floppy top collar. If you did button it, you would just have like a weird, yeah, you would have to have button in the collar. So there's 3 buttonholes. I have 2 done, and there'll be one right at the edge of the collar. Yeah, it'll be like right at the bottom of the collar, so there'll be a little bit of space above it. Anywho, I'm really loving it. I think that the stitch pattern is fun in this variegated yarn. I may be one of the only testers that's doing a pretty highly variegated yarn. It's gonna open up when it blocks for sure. Hopefully not too much, but I think it'll open this way a bit, and maybe this way. I mean, it will open this way just from weight and stuff. And so it won't look so bubbly as it is now, but I think I like it. I think it's like really, yeah, it's just super cute. Someone took a picture, and I think they finished the body entirely, and then we're going to go do sleeves, but they took a picture and they put it in the Discord, and it's so cute without sleeves also, like as like a really fun summer, like shorts or summer sleeveless Henley, that I would consider doing this in a smaller size. I probably wouldn't have as much, like maybe any ease, so that it could sit nicely on my shoulders. Or even just do a smaller size top part and then do some increases to give myself like a little bit more space in the body. Yeah. Anyway, that would be fun. I know I'm not going to do it this year, but yeah, good thought. And it would, I want to make this one, we'll see how I feel at the end, but this is one I already feel like I could totally be craving a tonal of this. It's so lovely. The texture is going to be, the texture is nice. It's going to feel really lightweight. And I just like really love that, the idea of the Henley. Let's see if I wear it. Not just the color, but like if I like the wear. I won't commit myself to anything right now. But I'm really enjoying the make. And I am glad. So I did quite a lot on this week, more than I thought I would. So I'm joined in the body, couple of inches, or, you know, 1.5 inches. I think I have 3 repeats done. And that feels good. That feels like I can get a significant portion of the body done this week and move on to sleeves next week or the week after. By the end of June, I think I could have sleeves done and a majority of the body. So I could be in a really good place to finish early July. And not be like running against the deadline at all, which would be nice. But we'll see, because I have some other things that I maybe made commitments for, which probably I shouldn't have, and whatever, that also have timelines. So let's talk about the first thing I cast on this week, which was the Theo blanket. Okay, so this is a pattern by Tony Lipsy. Her Instagram is TL Yarn Crafts, and she's got a ton of really amazing, I don't know if you've never done a Tony pattern for crochet, which actually, I think this might be my first one. I've tagged a bunch of them. She's got a bunch of really amazing patterns, and she has a bunch for free on her blog. So this one is free on her blog. You can also pay for it if you want it ad free. It's not very expensive, but I'm just doing the one on the blog. I did also because it's very simple. So once you do your, I'll show it to you. I've flashed the picture up, but I'll show you where I have so far. Once you do your first square, and I can talk about construction in a second, it's very easy to, you know, modify or like memorize the pattern. Like there's not much to it. I mean, it is a linen stitch crochet square blanket. So this is what I have so far. I just want to get all of the colors in to make sure I liked them this week, and I do. I love them. So this is a baby blanket that I will be sending to my friend Elspeth and her new little one, whose name is Lennox. And so maybe this is the front. This one's the front. How cute is it? So as you saw in the picture, so this will grow into like a large square with this staying at the bottom corner. Okay. And then you go and you do a border in your whichever colors you want, but I think you do a round of the black, which is what's considered my main color, but it's like the only one that repeats through, you know, at each stripe. So you do a border of that, you do pick one of these colors and do a full border, and then you also do the black at the edge. So I don't know what I'll pick. It sort of depends on how much yarn I have left, but I'm kind of thinking I might want this like bright orange to be the final border too. Mostly because this is the corner. Like I don't think I wanted this, and these two are too boring. Also, I have a ton of this. This is a pound of love. I think all of these yarns, other than this one, this bright blue, is Big Twist. Let's see. No, it doesn't have a label. I think this is a Big Twist yarn. But these other ones are all Pound of Love. And the black one is maybe also Big Twist. That one might have a label. Hold on. Yeah. It's like the Value acrylic. So these are all acrylic yarns. I really enjoy it. There is kind of going to be a lot of edges, you know, or a lot of ends to weave in. My thought to myself is I'm going to try to do a couple colors. Like, I mean, I don't want to be working on this for too long. I only need to do a full 4 colors repeated, or 5, to get to the like the crib size that they suggest, because it does, you know, it gets pretty big pretty quickly. So I think I will likely do a couple of nights and get through a couple of colors each time. So I want to do maybe more than one full color repeat per week to be done with this in 3-ish weeks. I know it took me 100 years to finish the Flower Vortex blanket, but I promise that's more just because of the piecing and the other things. Something like this I usually will get done a lot faster. So and this is pretty mindless, and it's a linen stitch. And if you don't know what a linen stitch is, it works the same way as knitting. In knitting, you slip stitches, but in this, you just go into you make chain spaces. And so you are knitting sort of in between, rather than stacking right on top of a stitch. So it grows half rate, but it feels pretty quick because you're also doing every other. So it's got almost like a granny square vibe, but it's also got a more, it's like a slightly squishier, more filled in texture. I very much like it, and I can't wait to continue going. I think this will end up being something like crib size 36 or something like that. And I am using a size 6. I'm just going with the pattern because whatever they used in the pattern was like, you know, maybe some Lion brand, also acrylic-y type thing. So, or cotton. And so, similar enough that I knew I didn't need to like gauge swatch or do anything. And yeah, but for weaving in ends, my thought is that at the end of every night I work on it, I'll just not necessarily catch up to what I did, but do like a handful so that at the end I don't have too many. I don't love weaving in ends, but I don't mind doing it like in chunks like that. Like I will prefer doing that than all of it at once. That will drive me nuts. And that is all for the Theo blanket. So the next thing I cast on was something I talked about last week, which is my Vice Versa test shawl for Bridget. Bridget is BZB Knits on Instagram and YouTube, and she is a dear friend. And she helped me pick out this yarn partly because I bought some of it when I was with her, and then she had a great idea after she left. She lives in Chicago, and came to visit us in March to hang out for a weekend when we went to go see Allie at La Mercerie, at the Explore Knits pop-up. And so this is where I am. This is I totally made this up last week. It's not a parallelogram. It is a triangle shawl. You're only doing decreases on one side, and you're doing a brioche decrease, which is two stitches at once, right? It does do a more rapid decrease, right, than one stitch, which I don't even know if you can in brioche because you like offset your pattern. So I think you have to do 2 stitches at once. I am not a brioche expert, so I, you know, have done a couple of things with very simple decreases, and I honestly I couldn't tell you. But I guess all of the decreases and increases when I did the Cinnabar, it's all increases, and that is 2 at once also, or more. So anyway, this is an interesting construction. So I am going to do, like, this is the main color on this side, and it will grow this way. And then I will pick up in this center spine with the main color being this color, which is my birthday cake, confetti cake, whatever yarn, which I'll give you details of those in a second. In that will go as the pickup like on this side. So when you're looking at it, when it's finished, there will be a front and back because the pickup is slightly cleaner on one side than the other. But this will be, the pickup will just be like, I did it in black on this one so that it's the main color on this side, and it will be the reverse on the other. So it will look very fun, but still have the 2 basic colors be the same. What Bridget and I have been dreaming about is maybe a little bit of extra figuring out how to incorporate some micro striping or chunks of striping that also bring this color back in. So I'm kind of contemplating where I want to do that. If I want to do a couple offset, not even, not the same, it's maybe too much chaos for me. I don't really know. But I will probably add it in because it's really fun. So, what do I have to say about this? Okay. You do an I-cord. You pick up on the I-cord, which was actually really fun to do, and not as in, like, I thought it'd be more annoying than that. You do a provisional cast on, so you can do these really gorgeous, but you have 2 options for a cast on of these last few stitches. But look how fun that is. It's an I-cord edge, but because you are, you're doing like a chase your yarn situation with a 2-color brioche flat, right? You knit one, then you purl the other, and then you purl one back, and then you knit the other, or whatever the, you know, that's just how brioche works flat, so that you can have 2 sides. But because you're doing an I-cord on each side, alternately, one color than the other, you get this really fun, like, striped I-cord. That's the cutest thing I've ever seen. I like the pattern itself, but I was like, wow, I cannot wait to have this like very fun pink and black striped I-cord. So, and that'll, like, you do the provisional cast on so that you can graft the 2 together at the end when you're going this way, right? So it'll be seamless looking. I'm really excited. Really excited. This is also going to be due flock, and we'll see how I do want it, but I really want to help with like release and hype for it. This is mostly a pattern that Bridget is doing in collaboration with We Chickadee Fiber and La Mercerie. So I think We Chickadee will have a bunch of braids at La Mercerie's booth potentially, so that they can have this kind of collaboration pattern release at Flock. I did not spin for this, and I could use some hand spin for this. I have some that would work, like a couple of skeins that would like be contrasting enough that are probably similar-ish weight enough. It's a light sport pattern. I am using fingering weight yarns though. Okay, so let's talk about this. I decided to do size 2 because I'm doing fingering weight yarns. It's not, I will block this out a little stretch, but I may still be a little bit under gauge, more because per the last pattern I did for Bridget, my end measurements for that bias brioche, the brioche bias cowl, I ended up being a little bit under gauge for that. So in theory, I could have just gone up and been happy with that, but I didn't. Anyway, so the needles I'm using on this are 3.5 millimeter needles. I am using 3 different yarns, but one is Cascade Heritage, which is in the color black. It probably has a number, but I don't know what it is. Anyway, it is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 437 yards for 100 grams. And then the pretty pink is called Birthday Cake. And I don't think the hot pink had a name, but it's hot pink. From Moondrake, and this was a 3-year birthday colorway for La Mercerie, which is where I bought that. And it is, the base is called Sparkles Stardust for the light pink, and it is 80% superfine merino, 15% nep, 5% stellina, and it's 410 yards for 100 grams. And I didn't put the note down, but I think that the hot pink, like in my yarn tracker, I need to just put a better note in the project. But I think that this one is an MCN. Maybe it's cashmere. Maybe it's just nylon. Anyway, it's merino and nylon at least in this hot pink. Okay, that's all I have to say about this, but you can see now that it's knit up that this birthday cake has like little tweedy colorful bits, and they're all bright colors, none of them are dark. And the stellina, which I think it's not really picking it up as much here, but it is like it's colorful stellina, so it's not just gold or silver. There's like red, blue, yellow, which is maybe gold, bits in it. And like, I don't know, this piece here, you can kind of see the stellina in this tweed piece. Anyway, overall, the effect is definitely like shiny, but not overwhelming in real life. Anyway, I'm like really loving that. Sorry, that was kind of a lot about that pattern, but that's a new one for me. And I am just gonna, that's one that the repeat is relatively long, and it's pretty memorizable. Like I don't think I'll have to like look at the pattern much after the second or third time I knit on it, but I know I'm not going to pick that up a lot. So I'm going to just try to have a weekly goal of like a certain number of decreases. So as it gets smaller, I'll be able to increase the number of decreases, right? Because even though you're doing the same amount of pattern repeat rows, the rows are getting a lot smaller. So hopefully that'll work out well for me. Okay, so my next knit that I cast on, and I think the blanket for Lennox was one I forgot to talk about last week, but I said maybe I was going to cast on my moon set, which I did not. But I did wind these balls. These are the most perfect little cakes. Let's see. Of Explore Knits and Fibers. I think this colorway is Sangria. Yeah, it's Sangria on the non-superwash base. So you can see it's way more washed out. It's a much earthier kind of red color with like a little bits of, you can see the yellow and orange in there. It's super pretty, and I'm really excited to get this cast on. I wound them up. I just, I was trying to get other like parts of these projects done this week, and I just didn't have as much knitting time. So, plus my Henley, just like, because I had to re-knit part of it and I just wanted to get joined in the round, took a little longer than expected, which is not a bad thing. I'm like not mad about it. It's fine. Okay, here is where I am. I cast on my Daydreamer. So like I said last week, I had decided on the podcast and I'm glad I did. The front and back are supposed to be high-low. So it should be 1.5 and 3 inches. Those are suggested for the high-low hem. For the Daydreamer, this is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. So I am making size, for the Daydreamer, I am making size 1, which is 40 inches at the bust. The recommended ease on this is 6 to 12 inches. So that is a little, you know, it's a little bit higher for the, for what I think Lauren, so this is for my sister-in-law, Lauren. She's pretty tiny. It's going to be a good amount of ease on her, probably like 8 to 10 inches or something like that. This is made with fingering and mohair held together. So I'm using Knit Picks palette in the color Penny Royal, which is 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It is a non-superwash, I think. Anyway, it's 231 yards for 50 grams. And then I am using Penny Royal, same color, in a loft, which is their 72% mohair, 28% silk base. It's a lace weight. It's 260 yards for 25 grams. And I, okay, so here's what I've got. I cast this on last night, and I finished the back, and I cut that, put it on a holder needle, and then I cast on the front, and I will join these. I think I have 3 more rows of this, and then I'll join. So I think it'll go pretty quick. The gauge is like decent. I mean, it's a DK weight gauge because you're holding these two together. I really love this ribbing actually because it's not a traditional, it's not just ribbed. It's like a mixed rib sort of situation. So you've got some blocks, some like these are actually blocks of single rib, and then you've got some like, well, this is that backwards. Then you've got some stockinette pieces here, and then 2x2, and then the same thing. You've got some stockinette here, and then 1x1, and then 2x2. Anyway, it's pretty nice. It's kind of dreamy. I think that also helps so that like it won't scrunch in very much and you don't have to block it aggressively. I should probably measure this to see if I'm on like stitch gauge before I join them. I'll be close enough. I think I might be a little bit small, though this is looking pretty big. Anyway, it's again, I cannot judge. I can't tell measurements with my eyeballs. But I will, yeah, I think it'll go pretty quickly is my thought and hopes and dreams on here. This is a lot of texture knit in this, but I do think, and there's bobbles, but the bobbles are with a crochet hook, which I'm not opposed to. The pattern itself is a lot of honeycomb, so it's more frequent cables, but there are less of them, so it's like, I don't know, I think it'll also be pretty easy to read. I don't know that I've done anything with like a lot of honeycomb in it, so it'll be interesting to see how I like doing that. Sorry, Nordland uses that stitch pattern a lot in her Hayley sweaters, so like that'll tell me how much I want to make some of those other ones on my queue. But here we are. We're cast on, we're started. Oh, what I was saying is that this is 1.5 inches for the back and 3 for the back, 1.5 for the front is what's suggested. And I decided on the podcast last week, I'm just doing 2 inches. And so this is like just about 2 inches for both front and back, and they're just gonna be even. And that is good for me. And so I'll just get that started so I continue my gift knitting so I can get to my mom's cardigan not too late in the year. I also am going to gift knit something for the baby this summer, so I might do that in between this and the cardigan. Yeah, but it's going well, this new pattern. I am using size 3.25 millimeter needles, which I just did suggested. I did not gauge swatch this at all. I'm gonna live on the edge, and hopefully, like, again, I will look at the gauge now. It's kind of hard to tell because I think the whole thing is like it's gauge in pattern is what you're shooting for. So, and yeah, I am gonna do, yeah, just buckle up and get quite a lot of that done. Being bottom up, I just have to like push through the body, and I think it'll not, it's like not gonna be too long, it's not gonna be too big, it'll be fine. And it's DK weight. So many fingering weight things on my needles right now. But my 2 DK weight things are really patterned, so that's really fun choices I've made for myself. I I'm really excited. Tulsa Tank comes out tomorrow. Which is Friday, so maybe when this episode comes out. Anyway, it should be out on the 7th. I think that's when Rebecca usually releases patterns, and I am excited to just like look a little bit more. I'm definitely going to buy the pattern and then see what I want to do as far as casting on my Barbie core yarn that I just finished last week. I did some math measurements. I have about 465, so like 2 skeins of DK weight. I did look on my little wraps per inch thing, and here, I'll show it to you. In case you haven't seen it before, I got this from Sunrise Grove, and this is so last year sometime, and so this is a little, you can do wraps per inch, and they're inset. These little grooves are inset, so you can also lay your yarn across the top, like across it. It's not going to be the most accurate thing to do that as your measurement, but I did measure at between 11 and 12 wraps per inch, and it sort of depended on, you know, what strands I picked. So I would say I'm probably a light DK. And when I laid it across the sport or DK, it's a little bit more sport weight looking for most of the strands. But again, we'll see how it, and the ply is like kind of tight on it. So I think that's really what it is. It's like, it is a light DK, heavy sport. So knowing how much, this dog is being very loud, sorry. Knowing how much yarn I have and the weight, and even though, yes, the Tulsa Tank is a fingering weight or a DK weight gauge project, I will maybe just do some fun math if I want to use that pattern. I'm also going to look for some sport weight patterns maybe, because her DK weight gauge also for this pattern is close to the Tulsa T gauge, which is pretty like open. I think it's like 17 stitches across with like maybe a 5mm needle. And so like, because of the way this yarn is, maybe I don't want that open of a gauge. I'm not really sure. I might just do a swatch and see what I think. Either way, I want the Tulsa Tank pattern because I definitely will make at least 1 or 2 variations in the near future. And I think because they're at a big gauge, if I do the DK weight not fingering, I will get to use up some of my DK weight quantities of T tank things that I have here. Also some other things, like this is a spin I might do for another spin to do maybe even a little bit heavier combo spin, or really just like do a fade between the 2 of these. Okay, before we get to books, let's do acquisitions. Okay, so for acquisitions, I didn't open this yet. Hold on. So I got 2 things from D-Stash. Partly one person who put, it was all from one person. She's posted a couple times on the D-Stash Discord. So I knew she was reliable for sending things. And she had this one sitting here for a couple of days, and then she did a little sale. And this one, she put on sale, and maybe you knew I like this color. But I got a t-shirt quantity of this, and actually I just don't have this base, and I don't really have very much La Bien Amy yarn, but that's what this is. This is BFL Tough Sock. It's 465 yards for 100 grams. It's 75% blue faced luster, 25% nylon. I think it's non-superwash, but you can see like how this is dyed. Similar to this, it has that like black sheen to it, kind of like the layer, like there's like some dark layer that's like sitting on top of it, almost as like a halo. It's gorgeous. It's super pretty live. Like this is actually way prettier than the picture, and a little bit less purple than I thought it was going to be. Like it's more of this like berry color, which is fine with me, and definitely something I'm gonna make. So that's a fingering weight yarn. And then here is the other thing I got. So this is from the same person as the yarn. That was not a mystery, but she posted mystery fiber boxes. So I don't know what's in this, and so you and I will figure it out together. I think there's supposed to be 5 or 6 things in here, and it was pretty cheap to get a box, and so I thought I would just give it a try. So let's see. First thing, ooh, love already. This is, I don't even know. It's called Lincoln Long Wool. It's 2 ounces. It looks like hair. It looks like curly hair. It's really pretty. Obviously color I like. But can you see that? Like I have no idea. I'm gonna like some of this, maybe I'll just like keep in the little baggie and then show to Bridget when she comes, and she'll be staying with me for one of the days at Flock. And she can tell me what to do with it. Anyway, this is from Green Goat Ranch. Also, I could reach out to them if I was like, how am I supposed to spin this? But that's pretty fun. Okay. Next thing, this is an art bat. So this is Bats and Rolegs. The color is called Permission to Dance. It's merino silk, noil, and stellina in wool for the dame is the, this is definitely a bat. Like you can see here, like how it is. I've not spun off of a bat yet, but I'm interested to do it, and probably also something, because like you have to kind of do it long draw because it's a woolen prep. Something I'll probably maybe wait for Bridget to come also and just like give me some another demo in real life, or Ariel even, to just do some like supportive long draw, which is something I have not tried much of. Like a little bit, but I mostly work with worsted prep things so far, and so you can long draw those, I guess, kind of, but anyway. This is also wool for the dame. Ooh, this is really pretty. This color is called Neapolitan. It's 19.5 micron domestic merino top. It's 4 ounces and it's really pretty. Definitely not quite my shades of things, but this is something that I could definitely see myself spinning up and then making into a really lovely gift knit. Or using in tandem with something I have that is a complementary color, which I don't have very much here that I think would really suit this, but it's really pretty. It's super soft, like super, super soft. Okay, so that's 3. What else do we have here? This one is from Wound Up Fiber Arts. It's super soft, so it's a 90% superwash merino, which I have not spun yet, and 10% nylon, and they are Wound Up Fiber on Instagram. Okay, this, I'll show you the back because I think that's a better representation of the color, so I don't have to pull it out of here. This looks like a comb top too, and it's just like, it's pretty fluffy feeling comb top, but it's pretty. It doesn't have a color. No, it doesn't show you the color. I mean, it doesn't have a color name, but it's really pretty. It's got this like, it's a super moody kind of dye, rainbowy color, because it looks like there's everything. There's yellow, pink, blue, some really vibrant-y chartreuse color, some reds, browns. Yeah. Okay. Excuse the squish on that. So yeah, that's exciting. I really like that. Okay, so I'll have 5 things. This one is also a bat, and this one doesn't have any information. So this is a mystery bat of like, it looks like this is sherbet. This is what I'm going to call this color, because this totally looks like sherbet, like ice cream. It's got stellina in it for sure. Like colorful stellina. Yeah, and it's just like a bunch of really pretty colors. This is another, like, yeah, this is a fun one. Who knows how I'll do this one, but I could see myself, yeah, just splitting that up and trying some long draw, successful or not, and making like, you know, something really fun with the output, something stellina. So those are my 5 wonderful little surprise fiber things. So 2 of those were colors right up my alley. The 19.5 micron super or non-superwash merino is definitely up my alley for something to at least like try and make. And then 2 art bats, which I have a couple of bats, but not actually too many. So like, and also because I don't love those colors, that's a really fun thing to practice on, right? Because I won't feel bad if I like mess it up a little bit. Or if I don't really use the output, or if I use it for like an art project rather than something that's knit. That's really fun. So that's what I got for you for acquisitions. The next thing let's talk about is some books. So yeah, you can see how like, okay, you guys are, I probably will update this neckline sooner rather than later, because that is kind of bugging me. Anywho, the books I'm reading or have read, let's talk about those. I started the 8th Wheel of Time, which is called The Path of Daggers. I probably only listened to an hour of this, and almost all of that was prologue. I'm not kidding you. That's what happens in these books. Some characters I didn't know about, or ones we hadn't heard from their perspective, and it's fine. It's how they start. There's like a little bit of chaos. You're catching up with everybody. So we'll see what happens, because we sort of left a lot of the characters with like a lot had happened at the end of the last book. So we'll see what's going on there. So the first book I finished this week was A Dawn of Onyx, which is a book that I was reading last week. It is the first of the Sacred Stones books by Kate Golden. I had really high hopes for this. It was suggested from a friend, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. And here's why. I think, and I mean, it was the first in this world, so I think it was lacking a little bit of world building and explanation. There was some that we got, and what we got was interesting. I just think there was a little bit, and she's clearly gonna, like, the main character is very sheltered. So sort of like, you know, if you can think back to like a Harry Potter type thing, when he gets dropped into a world he doesn't know about, but other people know about, you like should be asking questions. A thing Harry Potter never does is ask any questions. So you kind of learn things like years later for some of this. This girl is also really sheltered. So she doesn't, I mean, part of it is like, you don't always know what you should be asking, right? And she also doesn't feel free to ask everybody anything because she's like sort of a prisoner. So, it's interesting. Premise is interesting. The writing is okay. I think my main issue with it, and like one of the things was the world building, and the other is I felt like the love story, as Sylvan will deem this, some inappropriate escalations. And part of that to me was not even that it escalated too quickly, which it did, is that I don't feel like she did a good enough job building chemistry between the main characters. And I think that's sort of like those scenes with some tension. There were a couple, but like, and maybe it was partly the narrator too, because I did listen to this on audiobook. Like, she didn't sell it for me. I'm gonna read the second one, which is called The Promise of Peridot or something like that. And I think it'll get more interesting. I just felt like there were some things that were less believable in a magical world than you know, you have to suspend your disbelief anyway, but I couldn't get all the way there. Okay. Maybe that put me in a funk, because the second book I read, which is called This Spells Love by Kate Robb, I also didn't love. This one for different reasons. Well, so here's the thing. This book is about a girl who goes through a bad breakup, and then her kooky aunt tells her we can do a love spell that she gets from this old creepy looking book. She's a like owns a bookstore, like a used bookstore, and says we can do this love spell to erase your bad relationship. So like you wish you'd never met a person. They were in a 4-year relationship. Obviously you should think about that even before you do a spell you don't believe in. Like erasing just that person even for 4 years is going to change substantial pieces of your life. So I understand the concept that Kate was going for here. Where I think it really fell flat for me was that and essentially, I'm going to spoil it for you because I just have to tell you the explanation. Essentially, she wakes up in I mean, this is right in the description of the book too. The main character, Gemma, wakes up in an alternate reality, but like same timeline, but she had wished away this person who, right, significantly impacted her choices in relationships. Some of the things were good for her and some of them were not. What is weird is this is like an alternate reality, right? And she tells her sister this and her aunt, and is just completely selfish in her perspective of this alternate reality. And in theory, she's the only one that's noticing it's an alternate reality, so that's fine. But when you share with other people and then you decide to maybe go back to yours or not, you are affecting their theoretical alternate lives. the thing that I just don't feel convinced about that plot line. And there were a lot of holes in, like, if you're gonna talk about alternate realities or, you know, magic or time travel or time and space travel, like, you have to have some rules you've created for yourself. And it seems that Kate didn't really create rules. She just sort of went with her feelings on this. And the main character is just thinks about it in a really selfish way, sort of. And so what ends up happening, I kind of hated it. And it was one of those ones where I think the worst cop out ever is like, oh, this was all a dream. But this is a book where it would have been better if this was all a dream. And it wasn't. And so it was just like things I would not recommend this book. Even if you're interested in that premise, I don't know. To me, it just, I just didn't like it enough to, yeah. And I wasn't convinced. So I finished it, more because I wanted to know what happened. Like, I was like, I want to know how she resolved it. And I think if she had resolved it in a better way, I would have maybe been like, oh, that was kind of cute. I was unsatisfied. Anyway, so I also paused on romance books for a minute to pick back up a romantasy that I knew was going to be good. So I started reading Fire, or actually I finished, yeah, and I started reading the third. So this is the second of the Graceling Realm books. I read Graceling a couple weeks ago. This is by Kristin Cashore. I think this series is maybe done. But anyway, so Fire is actually sort of a prequel, but it's the second book. And it's the second book on purpose because you hear about some of this. You're in like a sort of you're in a prequel timeline. So you're in maybe 40 years before the first book had taken place, and you're in another land that you sort of had heard about. What I'm hoping happens is this somehow bleeds into the third book, which is called Bitterblue. And I am reading that right now. And Bitterblue is the princess from one of the realms who was very young. This is like 9 years after Graceling. So we sort of jumped in timelines a little bit. So we were, let's call it year 0, and then minus 40, and then plus 9 now. And which could be very interesting conceptually. So some of the characters from book 2, which was previous, may still be alive and maybe could become players with like lots of, yeah. So, but Fire is about, Fire is a monster human. And so Gracelings are not in her land. It's a tangential land. Like, I don't know if it's an alternate reality or like an alternate realm plane, separate plane, or if it's just a land they don't travel to because there's like these mountains in the way. I'm not really sure. And they didn't make it, she didn't make it clear. So I can't tell you, but yet. But she Fire is a monster human, and she's the only one that's left of her kind. And monsters in this land are like, they look like normal people or animals, but they are like really fantastical colors. So like there are monster birds, monster bugs that are like extra glittery, or like a color that you wouldn't see in nature. So like you could have a monster horse, and the monster horse might be like seafoam green or something like that. And sometimes they have some powers, I guess, these monster things. And like there's a lot of talk about monster raptors, which I think are literally like giant birds of prey in like special fantastical colors or whatever. But they want to eat her specifically, but they'll eat other humans too. So like, there is they are different. But she has magical powers, and her powers are like mostly mind powers. Like she can influence people. And it's really interesting. Their land is at war, and she does not like using her power, but she is, the rulers are trying to convince her to use it for good in their side of the war. So for good, but on their side of the war. So it's very interesting. And she is also just a person that really comes into her own. And Kristin Cashore like writes good female characters that learn empowerment through other females and or just like through trial and error themselves, and I really like that. It's good book. And Bitterblue, again, princess 9 years after the first book, and she is all grown up, and she's like young in the first book, like 10, and so she's, you know, a 19 or 20-year-old. And she is, so she's figuring out how to rectify some of the issues that her father created in their land. And you have to read the first one to figure out why, but it's good. It's just such a good series. Like she's really good at writing side characters that are meaningful. Yeah, like a merry group of characters. And the main characters from the first book do present themselves in this one already. And I'm at the beginning-ish, you know, 20% in or so. So they, I think, will be featured quite a lot, which is nice. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about this week is just a side note, FYI, something coming. I feel like I'm going to talk about this 1 week early because I'm going to talk to Trisha next week. But I got contacted by a really lovely yarn dyer and fiber dyer. Her name is Trisha. She is Yarn Jam on Instagram. That's also her website. I'll link her website below. But she's doing this is not a secret, so I'm allowed to talk about this part of it now. But she is doing a really fun fiber dyed series this fall, which is based off of some of her favorite podcasters. And so I am in the group, which is so kind of her that she's a follower. She watches, and she reached out and asked if I'd be interested in collaborating. So she is dyeing colors. I'm actually going to see them next week and over video chat, and I get to pick the base that I want mine on. And yeah, I'm like really excited. So I'll have some a-knotty-mess inspired colorway, and this will be like I think it'll be available on her website. We'll get a coupon code for it that I'll be able to share with you, and it'll be like at festivals up and down the East Coast this fall. I think she's like trying to launch it in September. So we're doing all the color palette creations now. I'm so excited. Of course, she totally pinned me. She asked what colors I wanted, but also gave me like what her vision was going to be without my influence, and it's already perfect, and I don't want to change it. So I get to see the colors over Zoom, next week on early next week. So I'm not going to share the color until I have some live here, but she is going to let me, I think, share with you what my color will look like. And I'm so like thankful. What a fun thing to be included in, and to be amongst other really great podcasters. So that's so exciting. I'm also going to obviously get some of my own colorway, and maybe some of my friends and other podcasters I watch, and get to make something really lovely based off of yarn inspired by us and our loves. So I'm so excited. If you want to check out though, she has in stock yarn. Something I will likely be purchasing. I'm trying to give myself some space to purchase what I want at Flock, and then continue purchasing other yarn. But Trisha has some really nice summer bases, so I also may just like get a t-shirt quantity of something before the summer is out. But she has some really lovely tonals available on her website, and the bats she does have, or they're not bats, the braids she does have of fiber are really, really pretty. So if you want to see her style, please go check it out. I have one other yarn related announcement, and that is that Backloop Yarn Co. is having a sale right now. Erin unfortunately got laid off this week, and so she's having a sale of yarn to just like get some of the stock out of her house, and to use some of that as partial income replacement, which, hey, you got to do what you got to do. So if there are any colors that you are interested in, she's always willing to do a custom order. Hit her up. And that's Backloop Yarn Co. And she started a new side hustle where she is keeping them separate, and it's a polymer clay, stitch markers, etc. I think maybe she might do earrings and stuff too, but definitely starting with the stitch markers. I have some coming to me on the mail. So if you find, I'll link that also below. But if you go onto her Instagram, she might have a separate website for it already too. But she sent me some, and so I will, they're gifted, but I will show you them next week. They didn't make it here today. I thought they were going to be here yesterday, but they're actually coming today. So I will show them next week, but I'll probably pop them onto my Instagram earlier. They're very cute. I already know what there's coming, so I'm like very excited. They're very beachy. Okay, that was a lot of stuff this episode. I am going to sign off now. Hopefully you had a good time knitting, crocheting, crafting, weaving in ends, whatever you're doing while we were hanging out. If you have any questions or anything else, let me know. Let me know what you are working on, what new cast-ons you have going. If you have not watched my test opinions video, it is kind of what is testing 101, but I do have some testing opinions in there. Some really good thoughts and other things happening there. Again, if you ever have questions about testing, anything I'm making, etc., just pop them below. I'm happy to have side conversations, which I think I had a lot more of early in the podcast, but I've shared a lot of my knitting opinions. Hey, I'm always willing to share more. If there's more opinions, more questions you have, what yarn bases I like, what colors, what are my plans, all those kinds of things, I'm happy to share anytime. Let me know. I will talk to you next week. Have a really lovely day, evening, weekend, whenever you're enjoying this. And if you ever have questions you don't want to post below, remember, you can follow me on Instagram and send me a DM there. And otherwise, please like and subscribe. I'll talk to you next week. Bye.